Please set aside your current activities for a moment. The information you are about to receive promises to fundamentally transform your established worldview, opening new horizons for understanding reality. Society has relentlessly instilled 4 fundamental delusions in individuals since early childhood. These deceptions serve a clear purpose: to make people vulnerable, susceptible to influence, and devoid of their own will. Most disturbingly, the majority likely genuinely believe each of these assertions, thereby unknowingly reinforcing their power. 500 years ago, the eminent thinker Niccolò Machiavelli warned humanity against precisely such intricate schemes. He deeply understood that true power is never given. It is always taken. Today, we will demonstrate how these 4 detrimental falsehoods subtly strip individuals of their inherent strength, eroding their potential. By the time you finish this narrative, you will see through the veil that has long obscured your judgment. You will clearly understand why certain individuals seem to effortlessly achieve their goals and obtain what they desire, while others are condemned to a lifelong struggle, encountering insurmountable obstacles. Most importantly, you will discover the path to reclaiming the sovereignty and power that are rightfully yours from the start. It is pertinent to ask a crucial question here. Have you ever wondered why some people experience such inexplicable luck? They receive promotions with apparent ease, attract favorable opportunities like a magnet, and command universal respect wherever they go. Meanwhile, others diligently adhere to all accepted advice, strive for impeccable behavior, patiently wait for their turn, yet, regrettably, nothing significant happens in their lives, and they remain stuck in the same place. The essence of what is happening is not merely about luck, nor does it depend on being born into a privileged family or having influential connections. The true root of these differences lies in a profound understanding of the unspoken game in which everyone else is actively engaged, while you remain a passive observer, standing aside from the main action and unaware of its rules. In 1513, Niccolò Machiavelli penned his famous work, The Prince, which remains one of the most debated and controversial books in literary history. The reason for its contentious nature is that it fearlessly exposed the unvarnished truths about power, influence, and the deeper aspects of human nature, truths that society often prefers to carefully conceal from the general public. Remarkably, these same fundamental truths remain acutely relevant today, perhaps even more so than ever before. It is worth noting that these 4 deceptions exist for a very specific reason. They serve a definite, insidious purpose: to keep individuals within strictly defined boundaries, to maintain them in a subordinate position, making them obedient, inert, and pliable to manipulation. When one sincerely believes in these artificial constructs, they effectively and voluntarily delegate their sovereignty and power to those who have perfectly mastered the true, unwritten rules of this game, and skillfully employ them. However, one crucial realization must be made. Once you understand the true nature of these delusions, you can never return to your former ignorance. Your worldview will be profoundly transformed. You will begin to identify hidden connections and patterns that previously went completely unnoticed. You will deeply comprehend why some strategies lead to success while others utterly fail, despite all efforts. It's important to emphasize that this is not about becoming a cynical manipulator or a ruthless despot, but simply about regaining control over your own life. Essentially, it's about perceiving reality in its authentic form, without distorting it with your own desires and preconceptions. It is a call to reclaim control over your life, to cease the self-destructive behaviors that prevent you from reaching your true potential. Are you ready to open your eyes to the uncomfortable truth? Are you capable of challenging the ingrained dogmas and doctrines that have shaped your worldview? If the answer is yes, then it is time to delve into the first of these so-called deadly lies. The first deceptive maxim, which subtly poisons the human mind, states, "Good things come to those who wait." This assertion is arguably the most insidious of all, for it sounds so logical, so noble, so impeccably correct. It soothes the ear with its supposed wisdom and encourages passive acceptance of fate. However, upon deeper reflection, the true meaning of this lie reveals itself in all its cynicism. Sit still, make no sound, and let others take what rightfully belongs to you. Just ponder this for a moment. While you are in a state of waiting for the right moment, What is happening around you? Another individual is actively taking action, while one demonstrates patience. Relying on some turn of events, another takes decisive steps. While one trusts some abstract process, someone else creates their own effective process, and ultimately achieves victory. Such scenarios have been observed countless times. An individual who undoubtedly deserves a promotion but waits for their merits to be noticed, ultimately loses out to someone who actively and deliberately pursues that position. An entrepreneur with a brilliant idea who postpones its implementation, waiting for ideal conditions, eventually witnesses someone else launching a similar product and completely dominating the market. An individual who passively waits for their soulmate to magically appear in their life remains alone, while others actively seek relationships and find love and happiness. This deeply ingrained lie has convinced millions that active engagement is somehow wrong, hasty, or even desperate. That all good things should simply fall from the sky if one is patient enough. But what actually happens when you just wait? Nothing. Absolutely nothing happens. Niccolò Machiavelli once sagely remarked, "Since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved." He was not, of course, advocating for cruelty or malice. His point was that waiting for people to love you, appreciate your merits, or grant you opportunities is a losing strategy. True respect is born from action, from decisive steps, not from quietly and passively waiting in the shadows. As a vivid illustration of the principle of active engagement, consider a very real situation. Two candidates are vying for the same job opening. The first candidate, let's call them Person A, possesses seemingly more impressive documented qualifications. They submit their resume and then adopt a wait-and-see approach. The second candidate, Person B, while having perfectly adequate qualifications, immediately takes proactive steps. They connect with the company, establish professional contacts with its employees, send additional materials, demonstrating their competencies, and visibly prove their potential value to the organization through concrete actions. A logical question arises: who will ultimately get the job? The victory will undoubtedly go to Person B, because they understand a key truth that escapes Person A's attention. True opportunities are not static objects waiting for their turn. They must be actively created and shaped through one's own efforts. The strategy of waiting is, in essence, a cunning trap. Its purpose is to keep individuals in a state of passivity and inaction, while others actively implement their plans. Such a tactic can even instill a false sense of righteousness, justifying inaction with concepts like patience, or the popular adage that all good things come to those who wait. In reality, however, success and favorable circumstances come to those who dare to seize them. They come to those who actively generate value and confidently assert their achievements, demanding deserved recognition. The good things in life accompany those who deeply understand that time is the most precious and irreplaceable resource. Therefore, the wasteful expenditure of this resource on fruitless waiting is, perhaps, one of the greatest tragedies of human existence. The most outstanding individuals throughout human history deeply understood and adhered to this fundamental principle. They did not waste precious time waiting for official permission or approval to embark on their entrepreneurial ventures. They did not wait for an ideal confluence of circumstances to declare their desires or needs. Passive expectation that someone else would take on the task of creating favorable opportunities was alien to them. On the contrary, these individuals demonstrated decisive action, despite accompanying uncertainty, overcoming internal fears, and the absence of exhaustive answers to all questions. While some are inclined to wait for all factors to align perfectly, like stars in the sky, others are already actively achieving their goals, perhaps with only 70% of the necessary information, but demonstrating 100% dedication and complete commitment. While one merely contemplates the possibility of perhaps taking some steps someday, someone else is already experiencing a series of failures, learning valuable lessons, adapting to changing conditions, and ultimately achieving success. It should be clearly understood that the world owes you nothing simply because you have been patient. The universe does not keep track of time spent waiting, nor does it distribute rewards proportional to the duration of this inaction. True success accompanies those who are willing to step out of their comfort zone, accept the risk of rejection, and bravely confront the inevitable uncertainty of the future. Every precious moment wasted in passive waiting is a moment that another person effectively uses to take a leading position and outpace their competitors. Every time you postpone taking action, saying to yourself, "I'll start tomorrow," you are effectively giving your competitors another day to strengthen their positions and build an advantage. Every time comfort is prioritized over decisive action, you inevitably choose the path of mediocrity instead of striving for genuine excellence. So, what should you do instead of remaining in indecision? You must start acting. Preference should be given to imperfect but decisive steps, rather than perfect but paralyzing inaction. Instead of waiting for official approval, it is wiser to act, and then, if necessary, ask for forgiveness for the initiative shown. Do not harbor illusions that diligent work will be noticed on its own. On the contrary, efforts must be made to ensure its results are so obvious, they simply cannot be ignored. In every endeavor, cultivate a strong inclination towards immediate action. If a new idea arises, it should be tested without delay. Upon noticing a promising opportunity, you should pursue it immediately and with full commitment. When a specific desire emerges, it must be expressed directly and openly. The worst outcome might be rejection, but even that is incomparably preferable to uncertainty and regrets over missed opportunities. For the world rewards those who boldly move forward and take what is theirs, while others are forced to settle for mere crumbs, if any are left after the active ones. The second erroneous belief that can significantly undermine one's position is the assertion that everyone inherently deserves respect. Before you, the reader, perhaps feel indignation, assuming a call for rudeness or hostility towards others, it is necessary to clarify the true consequences of such a delusion. Such a belief encourages you to squander your most valuable social currency, personal respect, on those who have not actually earned it. By doing so, you inadvertently devalue yourself. Respect should by no means be considered a consolation prize for the mere fact of presence or participation in life. It is not something to be handed out simply because someone exists in the world. True respect must be earned through specific actions, a demonstration of strong character, and achieved results. When you show respect to those who have not earned it, you are essentially signaling to the world the insignificance of your own standards and principles. What are the consequences when an individual succumbs to this delusion? They begin to show respect to those who, in turn, feel no respect for them. They attach importance to the opinions of people whose achievements hold no real value. Advice from both successful individuals and those who have failed begins to be perceived with the same degree of importance. Their own time and energy are valued as if they have no worth, and they freely give them to anyone who expresses a desire for them. If you analyze the behavior of the most successful and publicly known individuals, a question arises. Do they treat everyone with an equal degree of respect? The answer is unequivocally no. These individuals are extremely selective in allocating their attention, time, resources, and of course, respect. They know perfectly well that respect is a two-way process, requiring merit from both parties involved. Niccolò Machiavelli, a great thinker of his time, once uttered wise words. People judge more with their eyes than with their hands, for everyone can see, but few can feel. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few really know who you are. This statement perfectly illustrates Machiavelli's deep understanding that outward impression, demeanor, and, importantly, the choice of whom one honors, inevitably shapes how others perceive their personality. When you lavish your respect on those who objectively do not deserve it, you risk appearing in the eyes of others as a weak person, incapable of discernment, or indiscriminate in your judgments. Imagine this scenario. An individual is in a meeting with 10 people. Half of them, 5, have achieved impressive successes, built thriving businesses, created undeniable value, and earned their positions solely through their own merits and hard work. The other 5 are there for entirely different reasons: patronage from influential figures, political maneuvering, strong connections, or simply blind luck, and their contribution to the common goal has been negligible or non-existent. If an individual demonstrates an absolutely identical level of respect to all 10 of these people, regardless of their real achievements, what message are they inadvertently conveying to those around them? In essence, they are declaring that genuine accomplishments do not matter, that real results are utterly insignificant. They are signaling their inability to distinguish true value from ordinary mediocrity. And when such an ambiguous message goes out into the world, people, as a rule, stop taking them seriously, questioning their insight and standards. However, this by no means implies that you should be rude or openly dismissive. There is a fundamental difference between basic human decency, which is the foundation of any civilized interaction, and true respect, which must be earned. You can certainly be polite and courteous to everyone without exception, but you should reserve your deep respect only for those who have truly proven their right to it. You can remain kind without descending into naivety. You can be attentive to others without becoming a spineless person devoid of your own principles. How does this fine line manifest in everyday life? When you encounter someone who persistently demands respect, though they have completely failed to earn it through their actions, they are typically initiating a kind of test. They seek to ascertain whether you possess clear standards and principles, or if you are merely another figure who can be manipulated and trampled upon. If you immediately demonstrate undeserved deference to this demanding individual, they will instantly categorize you as weak and treat you accordingly, without due reverence. However, if you behave politely but maintain a certain reserve, if you encourage the other person to work to earn your respect, then a very interesting dynamic unfolds. In such a situation, demanding individuals will either mobilize their efforts and genuinely earn that respect by demonstrating their best qualities, or they will reveal their true, sometimes unpleasant character, expressing irritation that they were not immediately bowed to. Those who are themselves worthy of respect will easily understand such a stance. They perfectly understand that genuine respect is not a gift, but something that must be earned, because people will undoubtedly have greater respect for an individual who possesses a firm adherence to certain principles. This pattern has been repeatedly confirmed in the business environment, becoming evident to the observant eye. A leader whose attitude towards every team member remains consistently even, regardless of individual contribution or professional competence, risks finding themselves in a position where their authority is disregarded. Such an approach undermines respect from the team, as it demonstrates insufficient self-esteem and a lack of clear internal guidelines on the part of the leader themselves. Their colleagues are also inclined not to take them seriously, as such a leader demonstrates an inability to distinguish between genuine value and mere mediocrity. A completely different picture emerges when it comes to a leader who, while maintaining general politeness toward everyone, clearly reserves their genuine respect for those who demonstrate outstanding results. Such a leader undoubtedly possesses unwavering authority. Those around them strive to exert maximum effort to earn their approval and recognition, thereby setting the highest standard of excellence and achievement within the organization. This principle, without a doubt, extends its influence to all aspects of human life. For instance, in personal relationships, if an individual continues to show respect to those who systematically disrespect them, they inadvertently signal that their own boundaries are insignificant. In the business realm, equating high-performing employees with those prone to inaction demotivates top talent and encourages mediocrity. Therefore, respect should be akin to a precious luxury item, valuable precisely because it is rare and requires effort to obtain. When it becomes cheap and readily available to everyone, it completely loses its ability to influence behavior and stimulate the achievement of significant results. Thus, each person faces a specific task. Stop squandering respect indiscriminately, like cheap Halloween candy. Start evaluating others based on their actual deeds, not empty promises or pretty words. While maintaining general courtesy and correctness in communication with everyone, true respect should be reserved for those who have undeniably earned it through consistent and valuable behavior. Pay close attention to how they treat others, especially when they are confident that no one important is watching their actions. Examine their track record of fulfilling commitments. Observe whether they are capable of taking responsibility for their own missteps, or if they constantly blame others. Notice if they are a source of value or merely a consumer of it. A person's respect is an invaluable resource that must be treated with due seriousness. Once this lesson is learned and acted upon, others, in turn, will treat that person with the genuine respect they rightfully deserve. This individual believes that respect is not given freely. It must be earned. Such a person values themselves highly enough to possess firm principles and adhere to them strictly. There is a third false belief that can undermine the path to success. Just be yourself, and people will love you. At first glance, this statement seems quite encouraging and optimistic. It seems to envelop a person in a feeling of complete self-acceptance as they are right now. However, a serious problem lies within it. Such an approach keeps an individual in their current state. If the current state of affairs does not align with their aspirations and desires, then this seemingly harmless advice becomes a true enemy of progress. The reality is that many versions of a person coexist within them. There's the lazy version and the disciplined one, the confident and the hesitant, the focused and the distracted. When the call to just be yourself is heard, a natural question arises. Which of these versions is being referred to? Most people instinctively choose the most comfortable option, the one that requires no effort, no personal growth, and no overcoming discomfort. They mistakenly interpret this choice as a manifestation of authenticity and originality. In reality, it often conceals mere idleness. They prefer to follow the path of least resistance, masking it under the guise of self-acceptance. However, a person must strive to be the best version of themselves, even when it is associated with inconvenience, and especially when discomfort is felt most acutely. The wise Machiavelli once shrewdly observed, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few really know what you are." He deeply understood that an individual fully controls the process of presenting themselves to the world. Everyone is free to choose in what guise to appear before others, and it is precisely the version a person chooses to demonstrate that will ultimately determine the range of opportunities attracted to them, as well as the circle of people willing to collaborate with them. As an illustration, consider the following example. Imagine that within each person, there are two hypothetical versions of themselves. The first, let's call it version A, is characterized by a tendency to be late, constantly looking for excuses, habitually complaining about difficulties, and striving to avoid difficult conversations. The second, version B, on the other hand, is characterized by punctuality, a willingness to take responsibility, a focus on finding effective solutions, and the ability to address problems directly and constructively. Both of these facets are part of the same person. However, a natural question arises. Which of them is more likely to attract the best opportunities and prospects? The false belief of just be yourself often convinces an individual that version A is more authentic because it requires less effort. Nevertheless, version B is no less authentic. It simply represents the facet of personality that requires constant discipline and hard work. There is an inconvenient but undeniable truth. A genuine, improved version of a person can cause a certain discomfort in others. The individual who dares to set clear boundaries can upset those accustomed to manipulating with impunity. The version that isn't afraid to voice their own opinion can irritate individuals who prefer to see others silent and submissive. And the person striving for excellence is quite capable of intimidating those who are comfortably settled in mediocrity. Most importantly, this is precisely the kind of person one should be. When a person transforms into their best version, they naturally repel those whose values do not align with their own, and, conversely, attract people who share their worldview. There is nothing wrong with this. On the contrary, this is the whole point of transformation. The goal is not to attract everyone without exception, but to attract precisely those who are needed. Consider the people most admire. Do they simply remain themselves, choosing comfort over personal growth? Or do they constantly and persistently push themselves to become better, even when the path seems incredibly difficult? The most successful individuals are true masters of self-discipline. They have clearly defined the version of themselves that brings desired results, and they embody this version daily, regardless of whether they feel an internal desire to do so or not. Similar manifestations are observed in every field of activity. A salesperson who just is themselves, comes to work based on their mood, says whatever they want, and dresses as they please, will have great difficulty winning the trust of high-value clients. However, a salesperson who appears as a professional, prepared, and solution-oriented version of themselves consistently closes larger and more significant deals. An entrepreneur who just is themselves, works only when feeling inspired, avoids making difficult decisions, and stays in their comfort zone, is destined to watch their business stagnate. But an entrepreneur who embodies a decisive, strategic, and growth-oriented version of themselves builds companies that truly matter and make an impact. This does not mean hypocrisy or pretense. It means a conscious choice to embody one's highest potential, rather than defaulting to one's most comfortable and habitual patterns of behavior. A person's current, comfortable version has led them to where they are today. If a person is completely satisfied with their current situation, then they should continue to be that version. But if they aspire to something different, they need to become someone else. The version of oneself that constantly procrastinates will never build the business they dream of. The version that avoids confrontation will not earn the respect a person deserves. The version that seeks universal approval will not be able to make the difficult but necessary decisions that lead to success. However, there is another facet of a person, one that acts despite fear, sets boundaries despite resistance, and makes decisions based on achieving results, not popularity. This version may cause discomfort in some people, but it will also attract opportunities and relationships that are fully aligned with their goals. A person should stop using so-called authenticity as an excuse for their own mediocrity. One can no longer hide behind the convenient phrase, "just be yourself," when, in reality, it merely conceals an unwillingness to leave the safe comfort zone. It is time to consciously choose the version of oneself that truly deserves the life one aspires to. It is important to remember that every successful individual, inspiring admiration, was forced to become someone entirely different than they were originally to achieve what they desired. These people actively formed new habits, mastered progressive ways of thinking, and presented themselves differently in society than before. This is not pretense. This is a natural and necessary process called growth. A person's current version has led them precisely to where they are now. If they wish to be elsewhere, they must transform, become someone else, not a fake copy, but a significantly improved version of themselves. This evolved version may cause some confusion or discomfort in others, and that is excellent. It only confirms that the process of change has begun and is bearing fruit. In this context, the author consciously chooses the path of becoming the best version of themselves, even when this process is accompanied by certain inconveniences and challenges. The fourth and, arguably, final lie that can strip a person of their inner power is, everything happens for a reason. While at first glance this statement may seem comforting, at its core, it is nothing more than a victim mentality, carefully disguised as some higher wisdom. This delusion convinces a person that they lack control over their own life, instilling the idea that some external, unknown force controls all the threads of destiny, and all that remains for them is to passively accept all events that happen to them. However, the truth is that events do not arise for some predetermined, mystical reason. On the contrary, they are a direct consequence of the decisions an individual makes and the actions they take. When a person believes that absolutely everything happens for some hidden reason, they effectively and voluntarily relinquish their innate ability to actively influence their own outcomes and shape their reality. The particular danger of this false belief lies in the fact that it is often perceived as something deeply spiritual and philosophically profound. It can temporarily improve a person's well-being in difficult and unpleasant circumstances, instilling in them that all these events are part of some grand higher design. However, while a person remains in passive anticipation, trying to decipher the mystical reason for their difficulties and sufferings, someone else actively takes responsibility, analyzes the situation, and finds concrete, effective solutions. To fully understand this phenomenon, the following point should be clarified. When something unfavorable happens in a person's life, they inevitably face two fundamentally different courses of action. They can either delve into an endless search for mystical or predetermined reasons why this particular event occurred, or they can focus their efforts on finding concrete, practical steps they can take to improve the situation. The first path condemns them to passivity and a feeling of complete powerlessness in the face of circumstances. The second, on the other hand, returns full control over their own life and allows them to actively influence its course. The theme of control over one's own destiny has always occupied the minds of thinkers. The renowned political philosopher Machiavelli once proclaimed, "I am not interested in maintaining the status quo. I want to overthrow it. These words contained a deep understanding that passive acceptance of the existing state of affairs, the conviction of predetermined events, is a true obstacle on the path to development and improvement. A person's true power is revealed when they are ready to take full responsibility for their life, and actively transform what causes them dissatisfaction, or does not align with their ideals. In everyday reality, this pernicious philosophy manifests in many ways, depriving people of the ability to influence their own destiny. Imagine, for example, a person who unexpectedly loses their job. Instead of immediately taking active steps, they comfort themselves with the thought, "Everything happens for a reason. Perhaps it's a sign that I should try something completely different." As a result, precious months pass in fruitless anticipation of some clarity or sign, when they should have immediately updated their professional resume and actively networked in search of new career horizons. Similarly, when faced with rejection, whether in personal life or professional sphere, another individual meekly says, "It was meant to be," or again resorts to the phrase, "Everything happens for a reason." Instead of conducting a thorough analysis of mistakes made, understanding the reasons for failure, and improving their approach, they simply accept rejection as an inevitable manifestation of fate. Or, when someone's carefully built business collapses, the person might say, "Everything happens for a reason. Perhaps I wasn't meant to be an entrepreneur." Instead of thoroughly investigating the causes of the fiasco, learning valuable lessons from the missteps, and making a new attempt, armed with accumulated knowledge, they completely give up and abandon further struggle. Such a delusion, like invisible shackles, binds the will and turns a person into a passive spectator of their own drama. They begin to sincerely believe that their achievements or, conversely, failures are the result of external forces completely beyond their control. Thus, the individual gradually ceases to feel responsible for their own results, because, as it seems to them, everything happens for a reason, right? However, people who achieve significant success in life demonstrate a completely different mindset. When obstacles arise in their path or something doesn't go according to plan, they do not seek mystical or cosmic explanations for what is happening. Their focus is on finding clear cause and effect relationships. They ask themselves a series of specific and pragmatic questions. What specific actions led to this result? What could have been done differently next time to change the outcome? How can a similar situation be prevented from recurring? What lessons can be learned from the circumstances? They deeply realize that the vast majority of failures are, in fact, a direct consequence of insufficient or poor preparation. Their failures are often rooted in ill-considered decisions or complete inaction. Conversely, a significant portion of what is commonly called luck is nothing more than the logical outcome of thorough preparation, making well-considered and insightful decisions, and consistent and purposeful activity. Certainly, it must be acknowledged that some events in life are indeed random and beyond human influence. These include natural disasters, unforeseen accidents, or decisions made by others that cannot be directly controlled. However, even in such extreme circumstances, an individual retains full control over their own reaction. They have the right to choose, to become a powerless victim of the circumstances, or to courageously overcome them, using internal resources for adaptation and moving forward. It becomes clear that this kind of thinking can destroy far more human potential than any other limiting belief. People often resort to it to find an excuse for their unwillingness to fight, their stagnation, and their desire to avoid the hard work necessary to change the situation. They convince themselves that their current situation is predetermined, instead of taking active and decisive steps to improve it. The mentality that everything happens for a reason shows particular cunning in the realm of personal relationships. Often, a person remains in toxic relationships, rationalizing it by saying, "Everything happens for a reason, and perhaps they need to learn some lesson." Instead of decisively setting boundaries or leaving a destructive environment, such people endure mistreatment, passively waiting for that mystical lesson to reveal itself. In the business world, this false belief is used to justify failures. For example, someone might say, "The business failed because everything happens for a reason. Perhaps I wasn't meant to be an entrepreneur." Instead of thoroughly analyzing mistakes made, adjusting strategy, and trying again, these people simply give up, calling it fate. The truth is that most successful individuals have faced failures numerous times. The difference is that they do not perceive failure as some cosmic intervention. For them, failure is valuable feedback. They learn from it and use the acquired knowledge to achieve success next time. It is necessary to stop searching for mystical reasons explaining why life isn't turning out as desired. Instead, one should start looking for practical actions that can be taken to improve it. Don't wait for destiny to deliver what you want. On the contrary, actively create conditions that will make success inevitable. A person's life is not a movie where everything unfolds according to a predetermined script. Life is what each person creates from it through their daily choices and actions. It's important to take control of your own narrative. You need to stop being a character in someone else's story and become the full author of your own. One should stop waiting for external approval or cosmic permission to take control of their life. The most inspiring realization a person can have is that they are responsible for their own results. Not fate, not the universe, not some grand plan. The responsibility lies with them, with their decisions, their actions, their standards, their efforts. When a person fully accepts this responsibility, they reclaim the power to change anything they dislike in their current situation. Once all four fallacies are exposed, it becomes clear that each pursues the same insidious goal: to keep individuals in a state of passivity, dependence, and powerlessness. For instance, the assertion that good things come to those who wait inadvertently encourages inaction instead of spurring proactive steps and decisive deeds. The idea that everyone deserves respect fosters a reliance on external approval, hindering the formation of personal, unwavering standards. The phrase, "just be yourself, and people will love you," actually traps individuals in their comfort zones, impeding their development and aspirations for new heights. Finally, the belief that everything happens for a reason strips away inner strength, relieving individuals of the burden of responsibility for their own lives and decisions. These beliefs are by no means a chaotic collection of poor advice or trivial misconceptions. On the contrary, they represent an integral part of a much larger system that skillfully profits from human passivity and inaction. When an individual opts for a waiting stance over active engagement, someone else inevitably seizes the benefits or opportunities that rightfully could have been theirs. If one indiscriminately bestows respect upon everyone, then true power concentrates in the hands of those who genuinely earn it and are capable of wielding it. Remaining in a familiar comfort zone means shying away from challenges, thus posing no threat to the existing status quo and keeping it unshakable. And finally, a deep belief in predestination deprives individuals of the motivation to fight for necessary changes, condemning them to resignation. The renowned thinker Machiavelli once declared, "Since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved." However, expanding upon this profound thought, it should be clarified that this is not about instilling negative, destructive fear in others. Instead, the true meaning lies in earning genuine respect, founded on an individual's high standards, decisive actions, and impressive results. This means that a person should possess a reputation such that others know they are in the presence of someone who always achieves their goals, who unequivocally rejects mediocrity, and who cannot be compelled to act against their will or principles. Such respect becomes the foundation of influence and authority. Throughout human history, the most successful and influential individuals deeply understood these fundamental truths. They consistently rejected convenient but deceptive fallacies, preferring instead the uncomfortable but authentic realities of life. Their choices were always deliberate. They prioritized decisive action over passive waiting, established high standards instead of seeking universal, often superficial acceptance. These exceptional individuals chose continuous personal growth over a cozy comfort zone, and took full responsibility for their destiny, refusing to blindly believe in predestination. Now that this knowledge has become accessible, individuals gain clarity. They recognize the false beliefs that once constrained them, and the truths that can grant them genuine freedom. A natural question arises: how exactly will an individual utilize this valuable knowledge? Will they revert to their old, ingrained habits, or will they actively apply the principles unveiled to them today? The choice, of course, rests with each individual, but it must be made without delay. For while one deliberates, someone else is already acting, claiming what could have been theirs. It is time to resolutely reject these detrimental fallacies, embrace these liberating truths, and firmly commit to living from a position of inner strength. It is crucial to always remember, truly valuable things do not come to those who merely passively wait. They are acquired by those who show initiative and boldly seize them.